We are, and we know because we just did it up in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. And they survived, and they actually enjoyed it. Yay. And you know what? On the last day, somebody said, you know, I think you guys save all the insights for the last day. What do you think might have happened?
Your brain shut up, so there is stuff.
You never know. But anyway, the sense was that over the course of those days, things kind of came together in a way that really did make sense by the end and seemed to fit into some sort of pattern. So we're going to have fun too.
Yeah.
And thank you, Zoran.
Yeah, good to be here.
Let's go.
Yo, okay. So as Jenny said, some of you probably met me before and some of you haven't. I know a few faces and the rest you're strangers. And hopefully by next Sunday, we won't be so strange to each other anymore. Well, not strange in that way anyway. Yeah? I'll stay strange, believe me. Okay. Now, you've had a couple of months without a segment. So did any of you have any highlights in your experiences over the last few months? In terms of your work, in terms of anything? Ooh, nothing.
Yes, I learned to calm down.
You learned to calm down?
I did.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that really blossomed?
I haven't really been for 2 months, but I've had the DVDs.
You know how important it is to use the microphone.
Microphone, sorry.
Yeah. And she's not the mic runner, by the way, and neither's Lisa. No, you are the mic runners. Okay, off you go.
Please help us to remember to record what's going on because maybe it's you that wants to review this segment.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't been here the last couple of months, only just started, but I've had the DVDs and I'm a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used a bit of this already from what I did at a day spent up at Jenny's place and watching DVDs, and it's totally changing the way I'm looking at things. It's getting me quite confused as to what to do with people at the moment, but I'm seeing things that aren't quite right. But it's had a bit of a big effect already.
Great. What was the biggest effect you think it was? What was the biggest effect?
Well, I pretty much specialise in back pain, and the procedures that I use work. But I had one girl the other day was working with my other trainer, and she's had a bit of back problems, a lot of it. And I just asked her after a session one day while she waited for a friend to do a session if I could spend some time with her. I explained what I was doing, and she said, yeah, sure. So I went through a procedure. We went through at Jenny's place with the clock, and took her through that, and got to walk around before and after, feel things, and she noticed things along the way. But when she got up to walk, she got halfway down the room and she just turned around to me with a shocked look on her face, and she just said, "Oh my God!" And I said, "You okay?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "This is amazing." She said, "I don't feel any pain."
Cool.
And she said, "I haven't been pain-free for years."
Okay.
That was in a half an hour I'm working on the floor with her, just doing that.
Great, Bruce. An OMG experience.
Yeah, so I've got to rethink how I work with people now.
Thanks. Somebody else? Oh, no, Bruce can pass it on. All right. No, I said, you're not the mic runner either. Yeah. Yeah, every now and then. Anybody else have any highlights? And it doesn't have to be in reference to anybody else. It could be just in reference to yourself.
I had an interesting experience. I went to a classical concert, listened to Mahler, and I was and sitting I find always very uncomfortable. And usually I move from left to right, to forward, sideways, backwards. And I thought, okay, I'm sitting back and I'm trying to find the balance in my spine. And I've written that in my little essay thing. And suddenly I balanced my head and I closed my eyes and I listened to the concert. And I'm normally not a quiet sitter. I always move to music. And suddenly I could feel the different parts of the music in different parts of my body. Some of it was more in the head, some of it felt more shoulders, some felt more bum, some felt like the whole body. Yeah, it was a really, really nice experience. Wow. I've never had that before, that just different parts of the music affect different parts of the body. So
lovely. Somebody else? Anybody else? Don't be shy. I'm shy enough for all of you, believe me. Silence. I can wait.
It's going to be.
Some encouragement going on over there. Come on, you say something. You say something. Oh, yes. Hello.
Hello. I think I had a similar experience to you in general, that I feel I could calm down a lot more.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's related to exploring the pelvic movement at all, but it's just what I felt. And but yeah, there's been a few really enjoyable bits in that last in between segment time for me.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the learning activities actually a lot, and the idea of teaching to people was really interesting. The way it made me understand ATMs better, or explore the ATM personally, and trying to teach a variation. I actually had one moment where I was trying to teach 3 people. I was trying, and they were getting something from it, and they were doing stuff. But the way I had studied the movement before in my own body, and what I understood that variation was doing in my organization, I could use words to guide people into that. And what it made my friend do was just have that experience of coming to a more includedness of her whole self in the movement, like through those instructions that I had understood previously. And that was amazing, just to understand the movement through myself, and then being able to transfer it was really, really good.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, huh? That was fun.
Great. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody, yes, you got encouraged. Very good.
Hello, Leonie. This is Leonie.
Hello.
I've been using a little bit with a few clients. I work as a kinesiologist, and as part of that, I find opportunities to bring some of the pelvic clock work or various other Feldenkrais techniques, sometimes just touching the body, bringing mindfulness to areas. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing, but I had one client, and she had an incontinence issue, and so I did the pelvic floor as part of that. And I was surprised when she came back and said, I don't have an issue now. So, and with that, I combined a bit of the pelvic floor actions or movements along with the pelvic floor clock. So I think that made a bit of a difference there. So is that okay? A bit closer? And then another client, I did some of the pelvic floor work with her, a tiny bit, and she had a rod in her back, and she could move okay, but she couldn't have any flexion movement, and we just did some sort of twisting, just turning her head, and she was suffering with some depression as well. And at the end of the session, I noticed her face had changed, and her mum had rung me and said, I don't know what you did, but it's phenomenal. So, yeah, so it's just amazing, just little bits of something. And I haven't even spent that long with them in that side with the Feldenkrais, and it's just such a dramatic change. So.
Great. I'm glad you're encouraged to say something. Somebody else, please. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hello.
I've been working with a lady who is an equestrian rider, and she's been going up in the levels, which means that the training and things that she's doing has also been going up. And she's got to a point that this new particular technique she hasn't been able to do. She doesn't have a particular feeling in her pelvis in order to make this particular move so the horse knows what she wants. And so we tried to do the pelvic clock a couple of weeks ago, and she has absolutely no ability to rock anywhere. So she can only pick her pelvis up and move it. So she had no idea actually how to roll it 6 to 12, and had no concept that there was a 3 to 9. So the only way around it for us was I actually had to take her feet off the floor so that she couldn't keep pushing down to pick herself up and move. And she said, oh, that's what I'm doing on the horse. I'm pushing down into the stirrups and I'm not actually feeling the horse. So we took her legs away and then she was able to roll.
Yo, that's good. That's good. Anybody else?
I have nothing revelatory, but given I'm being... life has become very much an exercise in examining pelvic clock and all of its derivations and manifestations. So I've been exploring a little bit bike riding pelvic clock, which is difficult, and it's kind of hard gauging how the pelvis moves when you're stuck in a saddle on a bike, but it does. And I did some exploration of dance floor pelvic clock, which I found really therapeutic. When I was like having to be on the dance floor for 6 or 7 hours, and I was in a fair bit of pain, and tried one of the new combinations, which is leaning against the wall pelvic clock, and it did wonders. It was amazing being able to be in a public place on a dance floor, listening to techno music, doing pelvic clock. None of you know that I am doing Feldenkrais stuff right now.
Cool. Did you do it back to back with a pup?
So yeah, pelvic clock has been awesome, and I've been really enjoying how it sort of extends through everything. So yeah.
Cool. Great. One more. Please. Excuse me.
I'm Barbara. I've been struggling with the pelvic clock, and when it came up as our homework, I said, oh no, not the pelvic clock again. And anyway, so I decided I needed to step back a bit from that and just do little movements. When I go to the hairdressers, I find it really uncomfortable because I have to sit still with my head down to get my hair cut. And I decided that while I was in that uncomfortable position, I would do tiny, tiny movements of the pelvic clock so the hairdresser couldn't tell. And it actually made the experience a lot better. It was great. So that was kind of fun. And I'll have to remember to do it next time. And I also had I'm doing this for my own chronic pain, not necessarily to become a practitioner, but my husband has neck and back problems, and I offered just to hold his neck, so he lay on the bed, and I just held his neck and felt his vertebrae, and just, it wasn't even 5 minutes. And he's, a doctor, very scientifically minded, and has never liked ATMs when I've dragged him off to classes, but he actually said it helps. So I thought, wow, that was kind of fun. So I'll keep working on things to help my husband, I think, and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, thanks for sharing that. I hope that some of you'll, when you get into smaller groups, you'll tell each other your highlights. Those of you who didn't want to speak in a large group, or enjoyments, or whatever, they're really good to share. Because you never know who's listening. It might be just exactly what they need to hear. Oh, you mean, oh, you actually like that? You enjoyed that? Oh, okay. Maybe I can find that enjoyment too. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Oh, okay. I'll start with the content. Over the next 7 days, we're going to be doing 3 different series of awareness through movement lessons. They're kind of related. And in the first series, you'll be doing movements with your arms, making circles with your arms in various configurations. In the second series, you'll be going back to babyhood and grabbing hold of your big toe and playing with your legs. And in the fourth series, you'll be returning to your arms once more. So it's very much sort of arms, legs, which then, in terms of content, that's the movements you'll be doing. In terms of process, you're all familiar with the process. Or you're getting more and more familiar with the process, yes? And that's the thing about awareness through movement lessons. Here you are in, what is it? This is the end of your first year, isn't it? Yeah, wow. Okay, so here you are at the end of the first year, and you've experienced a lot of different awareness through movement lessons. And they all have different kinds of themes. They all have different movement combinations. And have you asked yourself, well, that's the variety, but what's common? Instead of all of this, what's common? What's the same thing all the time? Doesn't matter what you do in any lesson, it's always the same thing. Have you asked yourself that?
Yes. Is that a rhetorical question?
No.
Awareness.
Cool. Right. So awareness is the common factor. Yeah. And to be aware, you need to, not a rhetorical question. Be in the present. What? Be in the present. Pay attention.
Relax.
Relax. Anything else? Huh? Flexible. Flexible what? Aha, flexible mind. Yeah, cool. Consciousness. Yeah.
Be curious.
Be curious. Great. Mm-hmm.
Breathe.
Yeah, that's pretty universal, wouldn't you say? Yeah. Pretty common to all lessons. Doesn't matter what lesson you do, it's always there. So, not a rhetorical question. Okay. Sorry, this is the preface for the next one. Yeah. Not a rhetorical question. You're watching 2 people on the floor. One of them's doing awareness through movement. One of them's just doing the movements. Can you pick the difference? Can you, just by looking at 2 people, let's say doing this movement. Oh, well, actually, a lot of you talked about pelvic clock. Okay, so dance house. 2 people side by side. One's conscious, one's aware, and one is just going through the motions. Can you pick the difference? Huh? Maybe. Good answer. That's one of the questions we'll be looking at in the next few days. Is it possible to discern when someone is in process, when someone is attending closely, paying attention, being aware, moving in quality? Can you discern that? Because you're shifting into the next phase of your training, which is to start to train as an awareness through movement teacher. That's a good thing to have, to notice if one of your students on the floor is in process or out of process, paying attention or not paying attention. Would you say? Yes, you're nodding your head. Yeah, I would say so. But you haven't crossed that boundary yet, so I'm not letting you loose off the hook. Do you know, do you know how often you are in process in an awareness through movement lesson? Do you know when you're in and do you know when you're out? Just because you walk through those glass doors doesn't mean you're 100% in all the time. Am I making sense? Can you discern when in an awareness through movement lesson, if I can say it this way, have you lost the plot? And when are you just doing the movements? When have you gone mindless, flexible or unflexible or otherwise? And when have you gone to the other extreme of just going for the movement because you want it? Can you tell the difference? And if you can tell the difference, then how do you steer yourself back to process? Because that is the practice. Yep, that's the practice. You do an awareness to movement lesson, going da, 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 da. Breakfast, yeah, that was really yummy. Tonight for dinner, yep. Oh, wait a minute. What am I doing? Doing awareness through movement. Oh yeah. Okay, breathing, ease and pace, da da da. You know the stuff. Because the more you can stay in practice, the more you get out of a lesson. Doesn't matter whether it's a gigantic movement, the full expression of the movement that's being asked of you, or whether it is just the smallest of intention being thought. If you're in process, you are learning. And what's learning? Knowing something that you didn't know a moment ago. It's learning. Learning is knowing something now that a moment ago you did not know. And so if that requires a big movement, good. If that requires a little movement, good. But as long as you can say, I didn't feel that a moment ago. Now I can really feel that. Done. That's in process. Make sense? So it's an invitation, not a challenge. So continuously invite yourself into that space. Yeah? Now, just to let you know, one of the highlights of the last few years in my practice, because of various ailments that I carry with myself, there was a moment that I was doing this picking up of the foot business that you'll be doing. And there I was sitting on the floor with my legs out in front, and I go to reach for the foot, and it's like, oh, I can't even get there. Didn't go. Didn't work. So for the next, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour, I just imagined the sensation of reaching for my foot. I kept it vivid. I kept it alive. I noticed, where I'd shift my weight. Everything inside, internal imagination, sensations, visualization, you name it, I was imagining it. At the end of the half an hour, I don't need to tell you what happened, do I? Just like that. And with that feeling that it was nothing. It's just like, ooh. But even a better feeling, and here's the highlight. That wasn't the highlight. The highlight was how present I was at every moment of the step of doing the movement. That was the highlight for me. That was the highlight. Actually being fully attentive to what I was doing as I was doing it. So that's the kind of highlight. Yeah. Would you like to speak? In the mic, sorry. You're allowed to speak without the mic, but go on.
In that process of imagining, because I've read in the magazine about imagining movements a lot, and I've been really fascinated by that, but did you imagine just the movement, like visually, or did you imagine sensing, like the sensation?
Vision, sensation, where I was in space.
Okay.
Yeah.
As many
multiple,
qualities as you could.
Multiple representations, yes.
And the sensation, even if you couldn't do the movement, you could imagine just the sensations.
Yes.
Okay, that's a step I'm still struggling with, but yeah.
Don't struggle, just practice. Yeah. So we all have different highlights, and they're all good. So I'm just sharing one of my highlights, and that's what set me off onto this track about thinking how important this business of learning how to pay attention is essential to anybody who's starting out in awareness through movement practice. And I don't mean you, because you're not starting out, you're down the track. But those clients, those students, those people that are going to come to your classes, they're going to be starting out. And for a lot of them, they don't know how to pay attention. It's something that they will learn through awareness, through movement. And if you can help them along because of your experience, wow, you'll be doing them a huge favor, and not necessarily just in respect to their movement. Yep. So, ooh, it's very serious now. Sorry. You'll get to know that I'm a bit of an earnest kind of a chap. And I don't mean negative. I mean, you know, I'm pretty earnest. I think this is an important topic in human existence, hence my earnestness. But you'll also notice that sometimes I can get quite silly. So somewhere between earnestness and silly, we'll have a good time. Right? Please lie on your back.